Hello everybody, tonight is Halloween and I'll be handing out candy to trick-or-treaters and probably have some candy to myself, but I can't eat too much of it. Anyways, I'm here to tell you a Halloween horror story, so that may give you some chills and lots of shiverings and goosebumps. Well, sit back and relax and prepare to be scared, because this is my horror storytelling Halloween edition. This happened to me when me and my fiance were at home at night during Halloween. Halloween was over and then a lot of trick-or-treaters are at home, had a lot of candy, had a great time. There's only one experience that happened to me and her. Now you see, my nephew had bought a doll and liked it a lot and played with it as well. But my fiance said she hated it and said it was creepy, and then she threw it down the basement. So one night, I was on the couch and my girlfriend was on her laptop, posting and role-playing as well, talking to her friends. Then I heard some noises. Sounded like a person trying to say something, but whispering. I looked at her. Did you hear that? She looked up to me, but she said, "It's probably the neighbor's tape again," she said. Got her eyes back on her laptop. Well, 2 minutes later, I heard a whispering, but a loud whisper. I looked outside and checked what's outside, but there's nothing out there, no one out there, and the neighbor's lights are off. So strange. I was getting a little teeny weeny freaked out. And then, before I could gather my thoughts, I just heard some noises again, whispering again. My fiance looked up to me. "It's that doll," she said. Of course it's a doll. Because if dolls can talk or make faces, I'm sure everything might happen. Well, let me tell you this. I don't believe in the paranormal. I went to the doll and picked it up, and it was fine. The eyes were closed, and the mouth was closed, and there were no batteries in it. So not a sound came from that doll. I put it down on the ground and looked at her. "No, it's not," I said to her. "Just leave it alone." She was getting a little freaked out, of course. Before I sat back on the couch, I just heard some garbling followed by wheezing. A little tiny disturbing sound. I was about to check outside the backyard, but when I moved, I noticed the doll moved a bit. Then I picked it up. Its eyes were open. Its mouth was open. And then it was heavier than before. And then I just heard some noises inside of it, as if it was the sound was about to reach its critic and go dead. I dropped it, and my fiance threw it down the basement. That's a scary thing that happened to us. So next day later, my nephew didn't ask for that doll again, since he had new toys, like Lego or Thomas the Tank Engine set. I only saw the doll one time, on the top of the steps of the basement, lying on its back. And this time, I pushed it down the steps into total darkness. That was a scary thing to see. Now, this happened between October, as the family were about to move out. The son's name is Jacob, and he has a father and a mother. But the mother somehow was kind of like a bit of a drug addict. So sometimes she was onto something. So one night, as they were about to move away, they heard some noises coming from the walls. So his dad knocked on the door to see if Mom's at something again. But she said it wasn't her. And then they noticed that the TV was moved and it was facing the window. That was so strange of how it moved. So my dad dragged Mom out of the room, and then he locked it to make it secure from the inside. So then everybody was in the kitchen, and Dad went upstairs. And Jacob was eating his breakfast while his mother was sitting just gathering some thoughts. 5 minutes later, the dad came back and put his finger to his lips as they heard some noises on the roof, like it was shuffling. So 10 minutes later, the noise just went away. So Jacob finished eating breakfast, and then Dad called Grandma to see if everybody can stay with her for a while until the new house moved. She said yes, and then she said to him that she'll pick them up. So Jacob went to the living room and sat down, where there was no TV set. And he noticed that the door, the empty room, nothing but walls and door, the door was open. And there was a bony hand stuck on the door frame. Jacob screamed and pointed to it. His dad grabbed him and ran out of the house. His mother followed behind, catching up to them. And the noise was still resumed in the house, as someone was watching them go. They went to the gas station where the grandmother was there to pick them up. So then, they went to Grandma's house, and they stayed. Nothing was stolen, and the window was open, but they never went back there again. The person who broke in turns out to be some kind of a wrinkled skin person and some kind of white eyes. He didn't attack them at all. He just watched them go. And then he thinks the house is his. I won't forget that experience of what happened to me and my friends on a sleepover during Halloween. You see, we were at Josh's house, who was like 2 blocks away from mine. And then he calls his buddies for a sleepover. And we all did. We watched a movie and ate popcorn as well. And then we went outside at the backyard, set up our tent camp, and we slept there telling ghost stories as well. His backyard was like a forest place, and it was kind of dim and a little spooky, but having us all around together made us feel safe. So in case an intruder comes, we can easily overpower him, 5-1. It was a late night, 11 p.m. And then we were eating popcorn, and we tell how school went as well. And thank God it's Friday. Then, well, we heard some noises coming from outside. It may be a leaf blowing or an animal outside. And, well, it almost sounded like it. But I heard this giggling. Henry laughed too. Just thought it was funny. But 5 minutes later, it got really annoying, so we told ourselves to shut up. But 2 of us said, it wasn't us. And then a giggling continued, and it sounds like a 10-year-old girl giggling in a happy mood. And it was coming closer to our tent. And then it got closer my buddies were getting freaked out. And Josh remained calm. He wants them to calm down and be brave and get our act together. But before we gather our thoughts, the edge of our camp, the giggling had continued at the edge of our campground. And then we were getting freaked out, not knowing what to do. If it's some little girl trying to mess with us. Then the giggling stopped. And 5 minutes, it was silent. We were about to be relieved, but we just heard somebody saying, "Is anybody there?" And it was that 10-year-old girl again. And then we decided enough was enough. And then we should confront her like a real man. And then one of my buddies opened up the tent and there was nothing. We are freaked out. And we were about to make a break for it. So then Josh looked around and he didn't see anything. Then we were about to gather our stuff and someone went, "Excuse me." And then my buddy jumped and then we all made a dash for it. And back into the house, leaving our tent behind. And we locked the door and we tried to catch our breath. And then I looked outside. And then my heart was about to explode. It is a 10-year-old girl. And she was looking at me. And she has a very sad look in her eyes. I figured that maybe we should help her. But I'm not sure if it's a trick or something. But maybe to lure us out. I closed the blinds. And then Josh wants to encourage ourselves to see if what this little girl wants or what does she need. I looked out again and in a flash, which made my eyes wide, the girl got closer. And then she was like being worried. And then I opened the door and then in a flash, she came in. We asked her, what the hell does she want? But she didn't answer. She looked really sad and she wanted help. She wanted help. And we were about to... Josh touched her to make her feel comfortable, but it went past through her. Turns out she's a ghost. My buddies were getting freaked out. But the girl told us to don't be afraid because she was nice and she doesn't want us to be scared. But my buddy was getting a little freaked out. We told him to calm down. But I told her my parents are not home. His parents are not home. No one's home. And she was getting really sad. Well, she didn't want to hurt us or scare us. But she wanted us to comfort her. But she's a ghost and we can't touch her. And then, well, we wanted her to go away, but if we say that, that'll bring more tears to her eyes. But she then said, well, if they don't want her, then she might leave. But Josh had a brilliant idea. He gave her a flower, which made her happy and cheered up. And then she went back outside through the door like a ghost. And then she went back and then went out in the forest. And then she was out of sight. And when we got back in our camp, she didn't come back. And she was nowhere to be found. And thank God for that. Then the next morning, Josh told my parents what happened. And then my parents called the police, of course. And when they investigate the forest, one of the officers called the biologist, one of the ghostologists, And he told us that this girl had died of pneumonia, that she was wandering out in the woods, and she died from getting cold, and she was lost. So luckily, we gave her a flower, so she was cheered up and happy again. But she still wanted our help, finding her home and her parents again, who missed her. Well, won't forget the look on her face when she's sad and happy when we got her be happy again. And well, she may come back, but to visit us, but I don't know. But I do hope she doesn't do anything sinister or anything. I hope. This happened to me when my brother, who was 1 year old, as a baby, and the basement that I slept because my parents were about to move our rooms, new furniture, and paint our walls. Then I was sleeping downstairs in the basement, and Ben had an extra curb down there. I feel uncomfortable sleeping in the basement, but having Ben down there made me feel safer. And sometimes he would wake me up crying. I like what he wants, so he can go back to sleep peacefully. One night, it all changed. I woke up to him screaming, not crying, screaming, like no 1-year-old should. So I went to him. He was looking at me very frantically, and he pointed at something. I looked at the direction he was pointing. And turns out that I looked at the pitch black boiler room, and I feel like a knife was about to stab my heart, as I always feel like I was being watched. And there it is. There were 2 eyes watching us. And they blink. Sometimes wide-eyed, and sometimes squinting. My heart was about to explode as someone or figure was about to do something if we went back to sleep. I grabbed Ben and got the hell out of there. The figure didn't follow us. He just watched us go. And then I didn't go back down to that basement that night. The next morning, I told my dad to go check in the boiler room downstairs. And when he did, he said there was nothing. But when he said there was nothing, he looked at us as if me and Ben were crazy. But we weren't crazy. So I want my dad to sleep with us downstairs, and my mother too, and check to see if that's correct. And then it happened again. Ben was screaming again, and our parents and me woke up, and we looked at the boiler room. And Dad was shocked, and my mother was terrified. There are 2 eyes, and the figure was staring at us. My dad grabbed the baseball bat, and my mom got the flashlight. She was about to ready to strike him down, but it must be like a sad person. Not sad person, but a curious person. And my dad was about to swing the bat at his face and hit the wall. He's a ghost. My dad was getting freaked out. My mother was terrifying. And then the ghost backed up, like he didn't want to hurt us. My dad went upstairs and called the police. And my mother kept an eye on the ghost. And I was holding Ben, and he was still crying, like he wants that ghost to go away. The police arrived, and they went to check the boiler room. And it turns out that this ghost was homely, and he died from a car accident. And then he wants to take refuge from someone or spirits trying to harm him. And then he took refuge in our basement, and he wants to help us. So then the ghostologist did. And then a week later, the ghost has passed on and went up to the heavens. And our rooms were painted and moved, And then Ben and I got our rooms, and I was so relieved that the ghost is gone. But I still had that pain in my chest since the time that Ben was pointing at something the first time the ghost was there and we got out. I'm not sure if that ghost wanted to hurt us. He was just staring at us as if it was curious, like Casper. This happened to me when me and my buddy Cameron, who is a black friend of mine, we went for walks late at night at 12:30 a.m. We would go for a stroll and make jokes to ourselves, talk about how our university was. And sometimes Cameron likes to do football, and I like to do baseball as well. But then one night we never went back outside again. You see, one night it was Friday and we all went outside. Like, I went to his house to pick him up, and then we all went out. We go through a park. It was isolated, and we went to the street, and it was completely empty. No one out there, not even a car pass or a bystander. It was like completely empty, like if it was a ghost town. And Cameron joked around, of course. And then, from the lamps of the light, we saw a shadow, and it was moving. And it was like dancing. We looked up, and we see a tall, lanky man. And he was wearing a old suit. And his eyes were wide, and his mouth looks like a cartoon out of a smile, with teeth showing, and wide eyes as well. And sometimes he cocks his head, like if he was being silly. I'm not sure if he looked drunk or high or onto drugs. So we watched him dance, and it was kind of an odd dance as well. Like we never saw that before. And Cameron said we had to keep going because he has a bad feeling about it. So we did. We walked across the street, and when we looked back, the man was gone. And it was strange. And at the corner of my eye, I saw him. And he was like standing there, like looking at the street light, and he turned his head and looked at us. We were getting freaked out. And I don't think he looked drunk or something. He must be fast if we turned our heads away. Then he tiptoed slowly towards us, like if he was a cartoon character sneaking up on someone. But he was moving pretty quickly, and he was looking at us. Cameron and I were getting freaked out. If he was about to do something. And then he stopped. Like a car length away from us. He looked at us, like he was cocking his head, like he was asking how is he doing, but he was silent, still smiling, wide-eyed. We were about to ask him, demanding and angry, like, what the frick do you want? But what I said was a whimper. What the But instead, Cameron finished it for me. What the frick do you want? He asked. I was so glad that Cameron finished it for me, if he was braver than me. And the man didn't say anything. He didn't respond to anything. He just looked at us, cocking his head. And then in his eyes, he knew he wanted us to go away. He wanted him to go away. Then his smile turned into a frown. But then he went back to smile and cocked his head, and then turned around and began to dance slowly, walk away. Not wanting to turn our heads back again and walk, we just watched him go. Until he was far away to be almost outside. Like maybe a football length, a stadium or something. then we were about to go, but he wasn't walking away anymore, nor was he dancing. He stopped, turned at us, stared at us for 5 seconds, and then a shocking came of a real horrorization. They all watched in horror as a shocking thing happened to them. Something that hits them with a heart attack and the heart dropping on their stomachs. And it was this.
Joe, he's coming back. What? Dude, come on, we gotta run.
Cameron was right. The man was coming back our way. He was coming back our way. And this time he was running. Me and Cameron ran too. We ran back to our house, trying to be fast as possible, and the man was catching up. So we had to lose him by cutting through alleyways and even through the fences. And sometimes we dropped garbage cans so that we could slow him down. And sure enough, he was kept running at us. Like I said, we threw garbage cans so we could slow him down. And the next block, he disappeared. I mean, he was out of sight. We were relieved. We were almost out of breath. But we figured he might catch up. So we kept running. Jogging. And we went back to our house. We were so glad that he was gone. And then, at the porch, there he is. He was his arms how you doing, mate? And he was still smiling. He was waiting for us. How did he know where we live? So weird. So, that man put his hands up, wanting us to be in peace. We were getting freaked out, and we were expecting to see his stupid smile again. And then in his pocket, he lets out a coin and flicks it at us. And then he waved goodbye and then cocked his head and winked, still smiling. And then he was fast dancing walk away as well. Oh my god, that was so freaky. How does he know where we live? No idea. So then, the next month, I moved to my apartment, and so does my friend Cameron. And we didn't see that man again. And what we realized is, he didn't look drunk. He didn't look high. He's not even a drug addict. He looked completely, extremely insane. And that was a scary thing to see, a smile like this. An experience that happened to me and Cameron. Still best friend Cameron. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoy my storytelling Halloween edition. Are you scared? Well, I hope so. If it weren't scared for you enough, why don't you play some spooky games so that your bravery can let up or let down? Anyways, hope you enjoy my horror story, and I will see you all next time. Take care, my friends.
Hey now, you're a rock star.